the clatter of silverware, and the low hum of conversation filled the air. But all I could hear was the frantic beat of my own heart. The restaurant's golden chandeliers cast a warm glow over crisp white tablecloths, but I felt none of that luxury. My apron was stained with coffee, my feet ached, and my ponytail was already slipping loose. I balanced a tray of champagne flutes, weaving between tables, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. At table 7, laughter rang out, sharp, familiar, and cruel. My ex, Daniel, lounged in his tailored suit, his arm draped around a woman with glossy hair and a laugh like wind chimes. He caught my eye, smirked, and leaned in to whisper something in her ear. She glanced at me, lips curling in a pitying smile. Heat rushed to my cheeks, humiliation prickling beneath my skin. I focused on my work, determined not to let him see me falter. I delivered orders, refilled glasses, and ignored the ache in my chest. But every time I passed their table, Daniel's gaze followed me, smug and triumphant, as if daring me to break. I remembered when he used to look at me with warmth, not this cold satisfaction. Now, I was just the waitress serving his new conquest. The restaurant was a world of polished marble and whispered secrets, a place where I was invisible unless someone needed a refill. I envied the women in designer dresses, their laughter effortless, their lives untouched by heartbreak. I was just a girl with tired eyes and dreams I'd tucked away, surviving one shift at a time. But as I cleared a table near the window, a group of men entered, dark suits, sharp eyes, an air of danger that made the room hush. They didn't belong to this world of polite society. They brought a storm with them. My breath caught as I realized tonight wouldn't be like any other. Something was about to change, and I was standing right in the path of it. I straightened my shoulders, steeling myself. I had no idea that the next few hours would shatter everything I thought I knew about myself, and about the world I thought I'd left behind. I tried to keep my head down, but Daniel was relentless. Every time I passed his table, his voice grew louder, his laughter more pointed. He wanted me to notice him, to see how easily he'd moved on. I could feel his new girlfriend's eyes on me, sizing me up, her smile sharp as a blade. I focused on my tray, on the orders I needed to remember, on anything but the ache in my chest. But Daniel wouldn't let it go. As I set down a plate at the next table, he called out, "Hey, Mia, don't forget to bring us another bottle. You know how I like it." His words dripped with mockery, and the people at nearby tables turned to look. My cheeks burned. I forced a polite nod, but inside I was crumbling. He leaned back, grinning at his date. "She's always been good at taking orders," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Laughter rippled around him. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palm. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, but I couldn't afford to lose this job, not after everything. I hurried to the bar, blinking back tears. The bartender gave me a sympathetic look, but I shook my head. I wouldn't let Daniel win, not tonight. I grabbed the wine bottle and returned to his table, determined to keep my composure. But as I poured, Daniel reached out, his hand brushing my wrist. "You look tired, Mia. Maybe you should take a break. Or is this the best you can do now?" The humiliation was too much. I felt everyone's eyes on me, waiting to see if I'd snap. My heart pounded, my vision blurred. I needed to escape, to do something, anything to take back control. That's when I saw him. At a corner table, half hidden in shadow, sat a man I hadn't noticed before. He was alone, his posture relaxed but alert, his gaze fixed on me with unsettling intensity. He wore a dark suit, his features sharp and unreadable. There was something dangerous about him, something that made the air around him feel charged. Without thinking, I set down my tray and walked straight to his table. My hands trembled, but I forced a smile. "I'm sorry," I whispered, barely loud enough for him to hear. Then, before I could lose my nerve, I leaned down and wrapped my arms around him in a quick, desperate hug. The restaurant fell silent. I could feel Daniel's shock, the confusion of the other diners. But all I could focus on was the man beneath my arms, solid, unmoving, his body tense as stone. For a heartbeat, he didn't react. Then slowly he turned his head, his eyes meeting mine. They were cold, dark, and utterly unreadable. I pulled back, mortified. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just needed a friend for a second." My heart hammered in my chest. I waited for him to push me away, to call for the manager, to make a scene. Instead, he studied me in silence, his expression giving nothing away. The tension in the room was suffocating. I could feel Daniel's glare burning into my back, but I didn't dare look at him. The man's gaze was steady, almost curious, as if he was trying to decide what to do with me. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and smooth, with a hint of an accent I couldn't place. "Is he bothering you?" The question was simple, but there was an edge to it, a promise of danger, of consequences. I shook my head, unable to find my voice. He nodded once, a barely perceptible gesture, then turned his attention back to his drink. The moment was over, but the air in the restaurant had shifted. People whispered, eyes darting between me and the stranger. I hurried away, my heart still racing. I'd acted on impulse, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just crossed an invisible line. I didn't know who that man was, but something told me my life had just become infinitely more complicated. As I retreated to the kitchen, I caught one last glimpse of him, watching me, his expression unreadable. I had no idea what I'd started, but I knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. I tried to lose myself in the rhythm of the kitchen, scrubbing plates and stacking glasses, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The memory of that hug, my arms around a stranger, the way he'd looked at me, played over and over in my mind. I'd never done anything so reckless. I kept waiting for the manager to storm in and fire me, or for Daniel to come gloating, but the minutes dragged on in uneasy silence. When I finally emerged with a tray of desserts, the restaurant had settled back into its usual hum, but I could feel a shift in the air. The man in the corner was still there, his presence like a shadow stretching across the room. I tried to avoid his gaze, but it was impossible. He watched me with a calm intensity that made my skin prickle. As I passed his table, he spoke, his voice low and commanding. "Waitress." The word stopped me cold. I turned, tray balanced on my palm, and met his eyes. They were dark, fathomless, and utterly unreadable. I forced a polite smile. "Yes, sir? Can I get you anything else?" He gestured to the empty seat across from him. "Sit." I hesitated, glancing around. No one else seemed to notice, but I felt exposed, as if the whole world was watching. Still, something in his tone made it impossible to refuse. I slid into the chair, my heart pounding. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, studying me with a faint, amused smile. "That was quite a performance," he said. "You have a habit of hugging strangers? Or was tonight special?" Heat rushed to my cheeks. "I'm sorry. I just needed to get away from someone. I didn't mean to drag you into it." He raised an eyebrow. "You used me as a shield." "That's bold," I bristled, straightening my spine. "I didn't have a choice. My ex was trying to humiliate me. I just needed a way out." He considered this, his gaze never leaving mine. "You should be careful who you use as a pawn, ragazza. Some people don't like being played." There was a warning in his words, but also a flicker of amusement. I met his gaze, refusing to look away. "I'm not a pawn. I just did what I had to do. If you want to complain to my manager, go ahead. I'm not afraid." He chuckled, a low, rich sound that sent a shiver down my spine. "Fearless. Or foolish. I haven't decided yet." I swallowed, refusing to let him see how rattled I was. "Maybe both. But I'm not sorry. I won't let him treat me like that. Not anymore." He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he leaned back, folding his arms. "You have fire. I respect that. But next time you need rescuing, choose more carefully. Not everyone in this city is safe to touch." His words sent a chill through me, but I held his gaze. "Are you one of the dangerous ones?" A slow smile curved his lips. "Very." For a moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of us, the air between us charged with something electric. I felt exposed, but also strangely powerful, as if I'd stepped into a game I didn't know the rules to, but wasn't entirely outmatched. He reached into his jacket and slid a card across the table. If you ever need real help, call this number. But remember, everything has a price. I stared at the card, the weight of his words settling over me. I didn't know what kind of man he was, but I could feel the danger radiating from him. Still, I couldn't deny the thrill that ran through me, the sense that I'd just been invited into a world far bigger and darker than my own. I stood, tucking the card into my apron. Thank you for not making a scene. He inclined his head, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't name. You're welcome, Mia. The sound of my name on his lips sent a jolt through me. I turned away, my heart racing, and returned to my work. But I could feel his gaze on me, a silent promise that this was only the beginning. As I cleared another table, Daniel caught my arm, his grip tight. What the hell was that, Mia? Who is that guy? I shook him off, my voice steady. None of your business, Daniel. But as I glanced back at the corner table, the man was gone, vanished as quietly as he'd appeared. All that remained was the card in my pocket and the certainty that my life had just changed forever. The next morning, I woke to a dozen unread messages and a headache that pulsed behind my eyes. I'd barely slept, replaying every second of last night's disaster. I told myself it would blow over, that Daniel would get bored and the mysterious man would forget me. But as I scrolled through my phone, I realized I'd underestimated the power of gossip. My coworker, Lila, cornered me as soon as I walked into the restaurant. Mia, what happened last night? Everyone's talking about you and that guy in the suit. Was it real? Is he your new boyfriend? Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, but I could hear the envy beneath her words. I forced a laugh. It was nothing, just a misunderstanding. But the lie tasted bitter. I could feel eyes on me all morning, customers whispering, coworkers smirking, even the manager watching me with thinly veiled suspicion. The story had already grown legs. Some said I'd been swept off my feet by a mysterious millionaire. Others claimed I was in trouble with the law. No one knew the truth, least of all me. Daniel showed up before lunch, his face stormy. He waited by the bar, arms crossed, jaw clenched. When I tried to walk past, he blocked my path. We need to talk, he hissed, his voice low and urgent. I tried to sidestep him, but he grabbed my arm. Let go, Daniel. I'm working, he leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. Who was that guy? You think you can embarrass me in front of everyone? You're making a fool of yourself. I yanked my arm free, my voice shaking. You did that all on your own. Leave me alone, his eyes narrowed. You don't know who you're messing with, Mia. Stay away from him. People like that. He broke off, glancing around. They're dangerous. I wanted to laugh at the irony, but fear prickled at the back of my neck. Daniel had always been possessive, but this was different. There was a desperation in his voice, a warning I couldn't ignore. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. I tried to focus on my tables, but I kept catching glimpses of unfamiliar faces, men in dark suits, sitting alone, watching me with cool detachment. They never ordered much, just sipped coffee and scanned the room. Once I caught one of them speaking quietly into a phone, his eyes never leaving me. Lila noticed too. You've got fans, she teased, but her smile faded when she saw my face. Are you okay? I shrugged, trying to play it off. Just a weird day, but the tension only grew. When I stepped outside for a breath of air, I found a black car idling at the curb. The window rolled down, and a man I'd never seen before nodded at me. Miss, you need a ride? I shook my head, backing away. No, thank you. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The boss wants to make sure you're safe. There are people asking questions about you. My heart thudded. What people? He shrugged. Friends, enemies. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. I hurried back inside, pulse racing. I didn't want any part of this. I just wanted my old life back, boring and predictable as it was. But it was too late. The world I'd stumbled into was closing in around me, and I didn't know how to escape. That night, as I walked home, I felt eyes on me. Every shadow seemed to move. Every footstep echoed louder than it should. I clutched my bag tighter, picking up my pace. When I reached my apartment, I found a single white rose taped to my door. No note, just the flower. Beautiful, perfect, and chilling. I stared at it, my breath coming in short gasps. Was it a warning, a threat, or something else entirely? I didn't know, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Inside, I locked every door and window, but sleep wouldn't come. My phone buzzed with a new message, an unknown number. You should be more careful, Mia. Not everyone is as forgiving as I am. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. Was it the Mafia boss? Daniel? Someone else? I was trapped between two worlds, neither of which I understood. The next day, the restaurant felt different. The regulars were gone, replaced by strangers with hard eyes and clipped voices. Lila kept her distance, and even the manager seemed nervous. I realized then that I wasn't just a waitress anymore. I was a target, a pawn in a game I didn't know how to play. As I cleared a table, one of the suited men slipped me a note. Meet me outside after your shift. Don't tell anyone, my heart pounded. I didn't want to go, but I knew I had no choice. The world I'd known was gone, replaced by something darker, more dangerous. I was in over my head, and the only way out was through. As the sun set and the city lights flickered on, I steeled myself for whatever waited outside. I had no idea who would be there, friend, enemy, or something in between. But I knew one thing. My life would never be the same. The city's night air was thick with the scent of rain and exhaust as I stepped outside, clutching the note in my pocket. My heart hammered with every step, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. I scanned the street, searching for the man who'd summoned me. The black car was still there, headlights glowing like watchful eyes. The suited man from earlier stood by the passenger door, arms folded, his expression unreadable. He nodded once. He's waiting for you. I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I was tired of being afraid, tired of feeling powerless. I squared my shoulders and slid into the back seat. The door closed with a soft, final click. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of leather and cologne. The Mafia boss sat beside me, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp, assessing. He didn't speak right away, just watched me as if weighing my soul. I broke the silence first. Why am I here? He studied me, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. You're in trouble, Mia. More than you realize. My men tell me your ex has been asking questions. So have others. You've become interesting, I bristled. I didn't ask for any of this. I just want my life back. He leaned in, his voice low and calm. That's not possible. Not anymore. You crossed a line last night and now you're on the board. People will come for you, thinking you're important to me. That makes you a target. I shook my head, anger flaring. I'm not your problem. I can take care of myself. He laughed softly, the sound dark and knowing. You're brave, but you're not invincible. I can protect you. But only if you do exactly as I say. I glared at him, refusing to be cowed. And what do you want in return? He considered me, his gaze lingering on my face. My rivals are watching. They think you're my weakness. If you pretend to be my girlfriend, it will send a message. They'll back off, at least for now. I stared at him, stunned. You want me to be your decoy? He shrugged. Call it what you like. It's mutually beneficial. You get protection. I get leverage. I hesitated, the weight of his offer pressing down on me. Every instinct screamed to say no, to run far away from this man and his world. But the memory of Daniel's threats, the strangers watching me, the rose on my door, all of it reminded me how little control I had left. What if I say no? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned closer, his eyes dark and intense. Then you're on your own, and I don't think you'll last long. The words hung between us, heavy and final. I hated the truth in them, hated that I needed him, but I hated feeling helpless even more. I took a shaky breath. Fine, I'll do it. But I'm not your puppet. I have my own life, my own rules. He smiled, slow and satisfied. Of course. But while you're with me, you follow my lead. Understood? I nodded, resentment simmering beneath my skin. Understood. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The touch was gentle, almost tender, but it sent a jolt through me. You're stronger than you look, Mia. That's good. You'll need it. I pulled away, my cheeks burning. When does this start? He opened the car door, gesturing for me to follow. Now. We walked together down the street, his hand resting lightly on my back. I could feel the eyes of his men, the weight of their scrutiny. Every step felt like a test, a performance I hadn't rehearsed for. I tried to walk tall, to project confidence, but inside I was trembling. At a nearby cafe, he ordered coffee for both of us, his tone casual but commanding. The barista's eyes widened when she saw us together, and I realized how quickly rumors would spread. I sipped my drink, trying to ignore the way his presence filled the room. He leaned in, his voice low. "You'll stay at my place tonight." "It's safer," I bristled. "I can't just disappear. I have work. A life—" He cut me off, his gaze hardening. "Your life is in danger. This isn't a request." I wanted to argue, to assert my independence. But the memory of the rose and the message on my phone silenced me. I nodded, swallowing my pride. As we left the cafe, he offered his arm. I hesitated, then took it, feeling the heat of his skin through his shirt. The city lights blurred around us, the world narrowing to just the two of us. I could feel the tension between us, the unspoken questions, the simmering attraction neither of us wanted to acknowledge. When we reached his car, he opened the door for me, his eyes lingering on mine. "You're safe with me, Mia, as long as you play your part." I slid into the seat, my heart pounding. I didn't trust him, not really, but for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Dangerous, reckless, but real. As the car pulled away from the curb, I glanced back at the restaurant, at the life I was leaving behind. I didn't know what waited for me in his world, but I knew there was no turning back. The Mafia boss's penthouse was nothing like I'd imagined. It was sleek and modern, all glass and steel, with a view of the city that made me feel both powerful and impossibly small. I tried to act like I belonged, but every step echoed with the reminder that I was a waitress pretending to be someone else. He watched me as I wandered the living room, his gaze unreadable, as if he was waiting for me to break the silence. I perched on the edge of a leather sofa, clutching my phone. "So what now? Do I just sit here and look pretty?" He smirked, pouring 2 glasses of wine. "You're not here to be decoration, Mia. You're here because you're smart enough to survive." "That's rare." I took the glass, our fingers brushing. The contact sent a jolt through me, and I hated how aware I was of him, his presence, his scent, the way he seemed to fill the room. "You don't know me," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. He sat across from me, swirling his wine. "Not yet, but I want to." His words hung in the air heavy with meaning. I looked away, my cheeks burning. The next few days blurred together. We went everywhere as a pair. Dinners at exclusive restaurants, late-night drives through the city, even a charity gala where I wore a borrowed dress and tried not to trip over my own feet. His hand was always at my back, steady and possessive, and I played my part, smiling for the cameras and whispering secrets I didn't mean. But behind closed doors, the lines between real and pretend began to blur. He told me stories about his childhood in Sicily, about the father he'd lost, and the empire he'd inherited too young. I saw the scars on his knuckles, the shadows in his eyes. He wasn't just a boss. He was a man who'd built walls to survive, and I found myself wanting to know what was hidden behind them. One night, as rain lashed the windows, he handed me a file. "You should know what you're up against," he said quietly. Inside were photos, men with hard eyes, police reports, news clippings about shootings and disappearances. "These are my enemies. They'll use you to get to me." I shivered, tracing the edge of a photograph. "Why are you showing me this?" He met my gaze, his expression raw. "Because you deserve the truth, and because I need to know if I can trust you." The honesty in his voice shook me. I realized then that trust was a rare currency in his world, and he was offering me more than protection. He was offering me a place at his side, if I was brave enough to take it. But danger was never far. Daniel's texts grew more frantic, his calls more frequent. He left voicemails that started with apologies and ended with threats. One night, I found him waiting outside the penthouse, his eyes wild. "You think you're safe with him? You're just a pawn, Mia. He'll use you and throw you away." The Mafia boss appeared at my side, his presence a silent warning. "Leave. Now." His voice was ice, and Daniel shrank back, but not before spitting. "You'll regret this, Mia. I swear it." Back inside, I pressed my forehead to the cool glass, fighting tears. He won't stop. He's not the man I thought he was. The boss stood behind me, his reflection a shadow in the window. "Obsession is dangerous, but you're not alone anymore." I turned, searching his face. "Why are you doing this? Why risk everything for me?" He hesitated, then reached for my hand. "Because you remind me of who I used to be, before all this." His thumb brushed my knuckles, gentle and reverent, and because I want to believe there's still something good left in me. The words undid me. I squeezed his hand, feeling the truth of it settle between us. The pretense of our relationship faded, replaced by something real and fragile. I saw the man behind the legend, and he saw the woman I was trying to become. That night, as we sat together in the quiet, I realized I was no longer pretending. The danger was real, the threats closing in, but so was the connection between us. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I wanted to find out, with him. As dawn crept over the city, I rested my head on his shoulder, letting myself believe in the possibility of something more. But even as hope bloomed, I knew the world outside was waiting, and the next test of our trust was already on its way. The days that followed felt like stolen time. I found comfort in the Mafia boss's presence, in the way he listened when I spoke, and the rare, unguarded smiles he shared when he thought I wasn't looking. The city outside was a storm, but inside his penthouse I felt almost safe, almost. The illusion shattered the night everything changed. It started with a dinner, just the two of us, laughter echoing off marble and glass. He poured wine, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen. "You make this place feel like home," he said, and I believed him. For a moment, I let myself imagine a future where danger was just a memory. But the world we lived in didn't allow for happy endings. The phone rang, sharp and insistent. He answered, his face darkening as he listened. I watched the transformation, the warmth in his eyes replaced by cold calculation. He ended the call and turned to me, jaw clenched. "Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone." Fear prickled down my spine. "What's wrong?" He hesitated, then pressed a kiss to my forehead. "Trust me." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. Minutes dragged by, each one heavier than the last. I paced the living room, glancing at the city lights, willing him to return. When the knock finally came, I jumped. "Who is it?" I called, voice trembling. "It's me, Lila." Relief flooded me. My friend's voice was a lifeline to my old life. I opened the door, pulling her into a hug. "What are you doing here?" She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder. "I had to warn you. Daniel's been asking questions at the restaurant. He's not alone. There are men with him. They're looking for you, Mia." My heart pounded. "How did you find me?" She hesitated, eyes darting away. "Someone called me. Said you needed help. I thought—" Her words faltered as the door slammed shut behind us. Two men stepped from the shadows, guns drawn. "Don't move," one barked. Lila gasped, shrinking behind me. I raised my hands, heart hammering. "What do you want?" The taller man sneered. "You're coming with us. The boss wants to send a message." Panic clawed at my throat. "Which boss?" He grinned, cold and cruel. "The real one. The one your boyfriend betrayed." It hit me then. This wasn't a random attack. Someone inside the Mafia had betrayed us, sold me out to a rival. I thought of the boss, of the trust we'd built, and wondered if he'd known this was coming. They dragged me from the penthouse, shoving me into a waiting car. Lila sobbed, begging them to let us go, but they ignored her. The city blurred past, neon lights smearing into streaks of color. I tried to memorize every turn, every landmark, desperate for something to hold on to. We stopped in a deserted warehouse, the air thick with the smell of oil and fear. They tied my hands, forcing me to my knees. Lila huddled beside me, shaking. The men paced, arguing in low voices. I caught fragments. Message, traitor, make her pay. I thought of the boss, of the way he'd looked at me that morning and ached with the fear that I'd never see him again. I wondered if he'd choose me, or if his empire meant more than a waitress who'd stumbled into his world. Time stretched, each second a lifetime. Then footsteps echoed through the warehouse. The mafia boss strode in, flanked by his men. His eyes found mine, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just us. He spoke to the traders, his voice cold as steel. "Let her go. This is between us," the taller man laughed. "You made your choice, boss. You picked her over the family. Now you pay." Guns were drawn, the air crackling with tension. The boss's gaze never left mine. "I'm sorry," he whispered, so quietly only I could hear. "I should have protected you." I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. "It's not your fault." He stepped forward, hands raised. "Take me. Let them go." The trader hesitated, torn between greed and fear. "You'd give up everything for her?" The boss nodded, his voice steady. "Everything." The world seemed to hold its breath. I saw the calculation in the trader's eyes, the way he weighed loyalty against ambition. For a heartbeat, I thought he'd agree. Then a shot rang out, shattering the silence. Chaos erupted. The boss's men surged forward, gunfire echoing off concrete. I ducked, pulling Lila to the ground. The boss fought his way to me, grabbing my hand. "Run!" he shouted. We sprinted through the chaos, bullets whizzing past. He shielded me with his body, never letting go. We burst into the night, breathless and shaking, the city lights blazing around us. But as we reached the safety of his car, he paused, looking back at the warehouse. "This isn't over," he said, voice raw. "They'll come for us again." I touched his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. "We'll face it together." He pulled me close, his arms trembling. "I almost lost you." I pressed my forehead to his, heart pounding. "You didn't. I'm here." But even as we clung to each other, I knew the danger was far from over. The betrayal had changed everything. The lines between love and loyalty, trust and survival, had blurred beyond recognition. As the car sped into the night, I realized we were no longer just pretending. We were fighting for our lives and for each other. We drove for hours, the city giving way to winding roads and shadowed trees. The boss, no, not just the boss, but the man I'd come to know, kept one hand on the wheel, the other never far from mine. The adrenaline faded, leaving exhaustion in its wake. I watched his profile in the dim dashboard light, the hard lines of his jaw softened by worry. He was silent, but I could feel the storm inside him. Eventually, we reached a small cabin tucked deep in the woods. He killed the engine and turned to me, searching my face for fear or regret. I shook my head, offering a tired smile. "I'm okay, really." He exhaled, shoulders sagging. I should have seen it coming. I trusted the wrong people. I reached for his hand, surprised by my own boldness. "You can't control everything. You saved me. That's what matters." Inside, the cabin was simple but warm. He lit a fire, the glow chasing away the chill. For the first time in days, I felt safe, truly safe. I curled up on the worn sofa, pulling a blanket around my shoulders. He sat beside me, close enough that our knees touched. He stared into the flames, voice low. "I've lost people before. Friends, family. I thought if I kept everyone at arm's length, I could protect them, but I was wrong." I listened, heart aching for the boy he must have been, the man he'd become. "You don't have to be alone anymore," I whispered. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the pain and hope warring in his eyes. "You're not afraid of me?" I shook my head. "Not of you. Of losing you, maybe." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The touch was gentle, reverent. "You're braver than anyone I've ever known." I laughed softly, tears stinging my eyes. "I'm terrified, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. For a moment, the world outside disappeared. There was only the warmth of his breath, the steady beat of his heart, the promise of something real. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, then deeper, as if he was pouring all his fear and longing into that single kiss. When we finally pulled apart, I rested my head on his shoulder, letting the silence settle around us. "What happens now?" I asked. He wrapped his arm around me, holding me close. "We wait. My men are searching for the traitor. When it's safe, we'll go back. But until then, we have this." I closed my eyes, savoring the rare peace. But even as I drifted toward sleep, I knew the danger hadn't vanished. It waited for us, patient and hungry, just beyond the walls. Still, for tonight, we had each other. And for the first time, that felt like enough. The days in the cabin blurred together, a fragile peace neither of us dared to break. We cooked simple meals, shared stories by the fire, and let ourselves believe, if only for a moment, that the world outside couldn't touch us. But peace is a luxury in a life built on secrets and enemies. It ended the night I woke to the sound of shattering glass. I sat up, heart pounding, searching the darkness. The boss was already on his feet, gun in hand, eyes scanning the shadows. "Stay behind me," he whispered, voice tight with fear he tried to hide. But before I could move, a figure lunged from the darkness, dragging me from the bed. I screamed, kicking and clawing, but a cloth pressed to my mouth, the world spinning into blackness. When I woke, my head throbbed and my wrists burned. I was tied to a chair in a cold, empty room. The air reeked of gasoline and sweat. Panic clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to breathe, to listen. Footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate. Then Daniel stepped into the light, his face twisted with triumph, and something darker, desperation. "Hello, Mia," he said, crouching in front of me. "You made this so much harder than it had to be." I glared at him, refusing to show fear. "Let me go, Daniel. This isn't you." He laughed, bitter and broken. "You never really knew me. You think he cares about you? You're just a pawn, but you're my way out." He pulled out his phone, dialing a number I recognized instantly. The boss's voice crackled through the speaker, cold and deadly. "If you hurt her, I'll—" Daniel cut him off. "You'll do exactly as I say or she dies. You want her back? Come alone. No weapons, no men. You have 1 hour." He ended the call, turning to me with a twisted smile. "He'll come. He always does the noble thing, but this time it'll cost him everything." I fought the ropes, rage and terror warring inside me. "You're making a mistake. He won't let you win." Daniel's eyes flashed. "He already has. I just want out, Mia. Money, a ticket to anywhere but here. He gives me that, you live. If not..." He pressed a knife to my throat, the threat clear. Time crawled. I replayed every moment with the boss, every word and touch, desperate for hope. I knew he'd come, but I also knew what Daniel was capable of. I whispered silent prayers, willing him to be careful, to survive. The door burst open, and the boss strode in, alone, hands raised. His eyes locked on mine, fierce and unyielding. "Let her go, Daniel. This is between us." Daniel shook his head, waving the knife. "You don't get to make demands. Drop your phone. Now." The boss obeyed, never breaking eye contact with me. "You want money? Take it. Just let her go." Daniel's hand shook. "I want more than money. I want to see you lose. I want you to know what it feels like to have everything ripped away." The boss took a step forward, voice steady. "You already lost, Daniel. This isn't the way." Daniel's face crumpled, years of pain and jealousy boiling over. "You took everything from me. Now I take her from you." He pressed the knife harder, and I gasped, tears streaming down my face. "Please, Daniel, don't do this." The boss's voice broke, raw and pleading. "Take me instead. Let her go. I'll give you anything. My money, my power, my life. Just let her go." Daniel hesitated, the knife trembling. For a moment I saw the boy I'd once loved, lost and afraid. But then rage won. "No, you don't get to choose." In a blur, the boss lunged, knocking Daniel aside. The knife slashed my arm, pain flaring, but I was free. The two men struggled, crashing into furniture, fists flying. I scrambled for the knife, cutting my bonds with shaking hands. Daniel pinned the boss, rage twisting his features. "Say goodbye, Mia," I screamed, hurling myself at Daniel, driving the knife from his hand. The boss seized the moment, flipping Daniel onto his back, pinning him with a strength born of desperation. Sirens wailed in the distance. His men or the police, I didn't know. The boss looked at me, blood on his face, eyes wild. "Go, get out!" I hesitated, torn between running and staying. But I couldn't leave him. I grabbed his hand, pulling him to his feet. Together, we stumbled from the room, leaving Daniel screaming behind us. Outside, The night was cold and bright with flashing lights. The boss collapsed beside me, breathing hard. "You saved me," he whispered, wonder in his voice. I pressed my forehead to his, tears and laughter mingling. We saved each other. But as the sirens grew louder, I knew this wasn't the end. The world would come for us again, demanding payment for every choice we'd made. I looked at the man beside me, battered but unbroken, and knew I'd risk it all again. For him. The world outside the warehouse was chaos. Sirens, shouts, the staccato flash of blue and red lights painting the night. I clung to the mafia boss's hand, my arm throbbing from the knife wound, but adrenaline kept me moving. We stumbled into the alley, breathless, as his men swarmed around us, weapons drawn, eyes scanning for threats. He pulled me behind a dumpster, his body shielding mine. "Stay down," he ordered, voice rough with fear and fury. I nodded, pressing my back to the cold brick, heart hammering. I could hear Daniel's voice, shrill and desperate, barking orders to his own men. The lines had been drawn, loyalty and betrayal, love and hate, all colliding in the darkness. Gunfire erupted, sharp and deafening. The boss's men returned fire, moving with ruthless precision. I watched as the man I'd come to love transformed. No longer just my protector, but a leader, commanding respect and fear in equal measure. He moved through the chaos with purpose, barking orders, never hesitating, but his eyes kept finding mine, a silent promise that he wouldn't let anything happen to me. I ducked as bullets ricocheted off metal, the air thick with smoke and fear. Daniel's men pressed forward, desperate and wild, but the boss's men held their ground. I saw Lila crouched behind a car, her face pale with terror. I crawled to her, grabbing her hand. "We have to move, now." We darted through the shadows, dodging debris and bodies. I could hear Daniel screaming, his voice cracking with rage. "Find her! She's mine!" A figure lunged at me, grabbing my hair. I twisted, slamming my elbow into his ribs. He grunted, loosening his grip, and I broke free, dragging Lila with me. For the first time, I realized I wasn't helpless. I could fight. I could survive. The boss appeared at my side, blood on his shirt, eyes wild. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, scanning me for injuries. "I'm fine," I lied, ignoring the pain in my arm. "But we have to end this." "He won't stop," he nodded, jaw set. "Stay behind me." We moved as one, weaving through the chaos. Daniel stood in the center of the lot, gun in hand, eyes wild. He saw us and raised the weapon, aiming at the boss. "You ruined everything," he screamed, voice breaking. "She was mine." The boss stepped forward, hands raised. "It's over, Daniel. Let her go. Let all of this go." Daniel's hand shook, tears streaming down his face. "You don't get to win." "Not this time." I stepped forward, heart pounding. "Daniel, please. This isn't you. You don't have to do this." He laughed, broken and bitter. "You never understood. You always chose him." I shook my head, voice trembling. "No, Daniel. I chose myself. I chose to survive," he faltered, gun wavering. The boss seized the moment, lunging forward. They struggled, the gun clattering to the ground. I dove for it, fingers closing around cold metal. I aimed, hands shaking, as Daniel pinned the boss, fist raised to strike. "Stop!" I screamed, the gun trained on Daniel. He froze, eyes wide with shock. "Let him go," I said, voice steady despite the terror clawing at my chest. "Or I'll shoot." For a moment, no one moved. Then Daniel released the boss, stumbling back. I kept the gun trained on him, refusing to blink. The boss rose, wiping blood from his mouth. He looked at me, pride and love shining in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. Daniel collapsed to his knees, sobbing. The boss's men closed in, disarming him, dragging him away. The fight was over. The danger had passed, but I couldn't stop shaking. The boss pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. "It's over," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "You're safe." I buried my face in his chest, letting the tears fall. "I was so scared," I admitted, voice muffled. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You were brave, braver than anyone I've ever known." I laughed through my tears, the sound shaky but real. "I didn't have a choice. I couldn't lose you." He kissed me then, fierce and desperate, as if he could pour all his love and fear into that single moment. I clung to him, letting the world fall away. When we finally broke apart, I looked around at the aftermath: bodies, blood, the flashing lights of approaching police. "What happens now?" I asked, voice small. He brushed a tear from my cheek. "Now we survive, together." The police arrived, questions flying. The boss's men closed ranks, shielding us from prying eyes. Lila hugged me, sobbing with relief. I held her tight, grateful she was safe. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky with gold and pink, the boss and I stood side by side, watching the sun rise. The world felt new, fragile, and full of possibility. He took my hand, squeezing it gently. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," he said, voice raw. "Someone who makes me want to be better." I smiled, tears glistening in my eyes. "You already are." He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. "I love you, Mia. I think I always have." My heart soared, the words I'd longed to hear finally spoken. "I love you too." We stood together, battered but unbroken, ready to face whatever came next. The fight was over, but our story was just beginning. But as the city woke around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that danger still lingered, waiting for its chance. The world we'd fought so hard to escape was still out there, watching, waiting. But for now we had each other, and that was enough. The city was quiet in the hours after the storm. The sirens faded, the police took their statements, and the sun crept higher, painting the battered streets in gold. I sat on the curb, Lila beside me, both of us wrapped in blankets, our hands trembling from shock and exhaustion. The mafia boss, my mafia boss, stood a few feet away, speaking in low tones to his men, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. I watched him, my heart aching with everything we'd survived. He looked different in the morning light, less like a legend, more like a man. His shirt was torn, his knuckles bruised, but his eyes found mine across the distance, and I felt the silent question between us. "What now?" Lila squeezed my hand. "You love him, don't you?" she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak. Love felt too small a word for what I felt. Gratitude, fear, hope, and something deeper, forged in fire and danger. But love was at the heart of it, undeniable and terrifying. The police finally let us go, and the boss came to me, his steps slow, as if he was afraid I might vanish. He knelt beside me, taking my hands in his. "It's over," he said softly. "You're safe now." I searched his face, looking for the truth. Is it really over? Or will there always be someone else? Some new threat? He hesitated, honesty flickering in his eyes. "There will always be risks, Mia. My world isn't safe. But I can promise you this. I'll do everything in my power to protect you. I want you with me. Not as a pawn, not as a shield, but as my partner. My equal." The words hung between us, heavy with meaning. I thought of the life I'd left behind. The safety of routine. The comfort of anonymity. I thought of the girl I'd been, the waitress who hid her dreams behind a tired smile. That girl was gone, replaced by someone braver, someone who'd fought for her own survival. But was I ready to step fully into his world? To accept the danger, the uncertainty, the constant threat that came with loving a man like him? He squeezed my hands, his voice trembling. "You don't have to decide now. I'll wait as long as it takes. But I need you to know I love you. I don't want to go back to the way things were before you." Tears filled my eyes, blurring the world. "I love you too, but I'm scared. I don't know if I can live like this, always looking over my shoulder." He nodded, understanding in his gaze. "Whatever you choose, I'll respect it. I just want you to be happy, even if that means letting you go." Lila hugged me, whispering encouragement. But the decision was mine alone. I stood, brushing dust from my jeans, and looked out at the city. The sun was rising, the world waking up, and for the first time, I felt the weight of possibility. He came to stand beside me, silent and patient. I reached for his hand, feeling the warmth and strength there. "I need time," I said quietly, "to figure out who I am now and what I want." He smiled, sadness and hope mingling in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." We walked together through the empty streets, the city slowly coming back to life around us. Every step felt like a choice, a step toward love or a step toward freedom. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I was no longer afraid to find out. As we reached the corner where our paths would split, he stopped, turning to face me. "Whatever you decide, Mia, you changed me. You made me believe in something better." "Thank you." I touched his cheek, memorizing the feel of him, the look in his eyes. "You changed me too. I'll never forget that." He pressed a kiss to my forehead, lingering for a moment before stepping back. "Goodbye for now." I watched him walk away, my heart torn between longing and relief. The city stretched before me, full of promise and uncertainty. I could choose safety, return to the life I'd known, or I could choose him, and all the risks that came with loving a man who lived in the shadows. As the sun climbed higher, I stood at the crossroads, the world wide open. My story wasn't over, not by a long shot. And as I took my first step into the unknown, I knew that whatever I chose, I would do it on my own terms. Weeks passed, and the city slowly returned to its rhythm, as if nothing had happened. I went back to work at the restaurant, the familiar clatter of dishes and hum of conversation grounding me in a world that felt both old and new. Lila was always nearby, her presence a comfort, her eyes searching mine for answers I still didn't have. I moved through my days with a quiet strength I hadn't known before. But every night, I found myself staring at the phone, wondering if I'd made the right choice. The mafia boss, my love, my impossible future, kept his promise. He didn't call, didn't send flowers or messages, but I felt him everywhere, in the way I checked over my shoulder, in the way I locked my door, in the ache that settled in my chest every time I thought of his eyes. I missed him, but I needed to know who I was without him. I needed to know if I could live in the light after so long in the shadows. One evening, as I closed up the restaurant, a stranger appeared at the bar. He was tall, with a scar running down his cheek and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He ordered a drink, his gaze never leaving me. "You're Mia, right?" he asked, his voice smooth as silk. I hesitated, every instinct on high alert. "Who's asking?" He leaned in, lowering his voice. "A friend, or maybe a warning. You made quite an impression on some very dangerous people." My heart pounded. "I'm not interested in trouble." He laughed, the sound cold. "Trouble has a way of finding you, especially when you're close to someone like him." I stiffened, refusing to show fear. "If you have a message, give it to him yourself." He slid a card across the bar, the name embossed in gold. "Tell him Alessandro sends his regards. And tell him the past never stays buried." He left as quickly as he'd come, disappearing into the night. I stared at the card, dread curling in my stomach. I knew that name. Alessandro, one of the most feared rival bosses in the city, a ghost from my love's past. The peace we'd fought for was already unraveling. That night I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, the card burning a hole in my pocket. I thought of the boss, of the promise in his eyes, of the life I'd almost chosen. I realized then that I couldn't run from this world. Not really. It was part of me now as much as he was. At dawn, I made my choice. I dialed his number, my hands shaking. He answered on the first ring, his voice rough with sleep and hope. "Mia, I need to see you," I said, my voice steady. "There's something you need to know." Within the hour, he was at my door, his presence filling the room, his eyes searching mine for regret. I handed him the card, watching the color drain from his face. "Alessandro," he whispered, the name a curse and a warning. "What does he want?" I asked, fear and resolve warring inside me. He looked at me, pain and pride mingling in his gaze. "He wants revenge. He wants to destroy everything I've built, including you." I reached for his hand, the decision clear in my heart. Then we faced him together. "I'm done running. I choose you. I choose us." He pulled me into his arms, holding me as if he'd never let go. "Are you sure? This life? It's dangerous. You could lose everything." I smiled through my tears, the weight of my choice lifting. "I already lost myself once. I won't do it again. Whatever comes, we face it side by side. He kissed me, fierce and desperate, sealing the promise between us. The future was uncertain, the threat of Alessandro looming over us like a storm. But for the first time, I felt ready. I wasn't just a waitress anymore. I was a survivor, a fighter, and I was in love with a man who would risk everything for me. As we stood together, watching the sun rise over the city, I knew our story was far from over. The past was coming for us, and the next chapter would demand more courage, more sacrifice, and more love than ever before. But I was ready. We were ready, and you, are you ready to see what happens next? Will Mia and the Mafia boss survive Alessandro's revenge? Will their love be strong enough to weather the coming storm? Comment below if you want part 2, and tell me what you think Mia and her Mafia King should do next, because in this world, nothing is ever truly over. And sometimes, the most dangerous love stories are the ones that never end.